The old maintenance worker's hands didn't shake as he watched 10,000 alien warships tear holes in space. Their massive black hulls blotted out the stars as they emerged from hyperspace, forming a wall of destruction that stretched farther than the human eye could see. From his viewport on humanity's last orbital station, he could already imagine the alien admiral's triumphant speech about crushing the primitive humans once and for all. A small smile crossed his weathered face as he turned away from the viewport. His boots made soft sounds against the metal floor, the same floor he'd walked across every day for the past 15 years, fixing leaks and replacing worn panels while everyone else saw just another old man doing menial work. If they'd bothered to look closer, they might have noticed his eyes were always watching, his mind always calculating. He entered his access code into a hidden panel behind a loose section of wall. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a chamber that didn't exist in any of the station's official blueprints. Inside, banks of jerry-rigged equipment hummed with power drawn from the station's solar arrays. A lifetime of forgotten knowledge and ignored research filled the small space, knowledge that would now save humanity. The aliens had conquered worlds across 3 galaxies with their superior technology. They'd laughed at Earth's primitive weapons and outdated defenses. But they'd made one crucial mistake: they'd never bothered to study humanity's past wars. They didn't know about the old technologies, the ones abandoned in favor of newer innovations. They didn't know that sometimes the oldest weapons could be the deadliest, especially in the hands of someone who'd spent 40 years learning their secrets. The maintenance worker's fingers flew across his cobbled-together control panel. The massive alien fleet loomed closer, their weapons powering up for the final strike against Earth. They never saw it coming. They never even considered that their doom would come from a gray-haired maintenance worker who'd spent his life being invisible. Sometimes the most dangerous warrior is the one you don't see at all. 3 months earlier, Earth's mighty space fleet burned. The old maintenance worker watched from his station as humanity's best ships turned to ash against the alien onslaught. 500 ships destroyed in less than an hour. The aliens' energy weapons cut through Earth's most advanced shields like they were paper. That day, everyone on the station cried, everyone except the quiet maintenance worker who spent his lunch break in the station's old archive room. In that dusty room, surrounded by forgotten paper files and outdated computer systems, he found what he'd been looking for all these years. A research paper from 1945, written by a scientist who'd noticed something strange about radar systems during World War II. The scientist wrote about radio waves that could be amplified by solar energy, creating bursts of power stronger than anyone thought possible. The military had dismissed it as impossible. The researcher died forgotten, his work buried in files no one bothered to read anymore. But the maintenance worker read everything. He'd started his collection of old technical documents back when he served in the Space Force, before age forced him into retirement. Young officers laughed at his interest in ancient history, but he knew something they didn't: sometimes old knowledge held secrets that modern technology had forgotten. Every day, he worked his regular maintenance shifts, fixing the station's systems and keeping everything running. The alien ships circled Earth like hungry wolves, attacking any vessel that tried to escape. They let the orbital station survive because it posed no threat. Their scans showed nothing but basic life support systems and a few old solar panels for power. They never detected the modifications he made in the abandoned maintenance tunnels, using parts he'd collected over 15 years. The aliens didn't understand solar power. Their advanced ships used exotic energy sources they thought humans couldn't comprehend. They never imagined that someone would think to combine simple solar collection panels with old radio wave technology. They didn't know that the maintenance worker had spent decades studying how to turn the sun's energy into a weapon. Late at night, while others slept, he worked in the forgotten corners of the station. He converted old communication dishes into energy-focusing arrays. He rewired solar panels to collect specific wavelengths of energy. He built control systems from spare parts, testing and adjusting until everything worked perfectly. The station's power usage increased slightly, but in ways that looked normal to alien scans, just an old station working harder to maintain its aging systems. Some nights, he thought about his family back on Earth. His daughter, who worked as a teacher in what used to be Canada. His grandchildren, who he hadn't seen since the invasion began. He thought about all the other families, all the people counting on Earth's fancy weapons and shields to protect them. Nobody knew that their last hope rested in the hands of a maintenance worker who remembered things everyone else had forgotten. The aliens grew more confident each day. They sent messages demanding Earth's surrender, boasting about their superior technology and unbeatable weapons. Their ships moved closer to the planet, preparing for their final attack. They saw humans as primitives, barely worth their attention. Their arrogance made them blind. In his hidden workshop, the maintenance worker finished his preparations. He calibrated his makeshift energy weapon, using knowledge that bridged old and new technology. He knew the aliens' overconfidence would be their downfall. They expected resistance from Earth's military, from official weapons and declared warships. They would never suspect that their destruction would come from an old man with a forgotten weapon. The station's crew noticed him working longer hours, but nobody asked why. To them, he was just the reliable old maintenance worker, keeping their home in space running while they waited for the end. They didn't see him studying the alien ship's movement patterns, calculating the perfect moment to strike. They didn't know that every repair he made helped hide his true work from the alien scans. As the alien fleet grew larger, blocking out more stars each day, the maintenance worker felt a strange peace. He knew his weapon would only work once, the power surge would probably destroy half the station's systems. But one shot was all he needed. One chance to prove that humanity's oldest knowledge, combined with simple determination, could defeat the most advanced alien technology. The maintenance worker's fascination with old technology began during his childhood in the Rocky Mountains. His grandfather, a radio operator in World War II, used to tell stories about strange signals they'd pick up during solar storms. Most people dismissed these tales as an old man's imagination, but the young boy listened carefully, filing away every detail in his mind. Years later, he joined the Space Force as an engineer. While others rushed to learn the newest technology, he spent his free time in military archives, studying forgotten research papers. He discovered that during World War II, radar operators had reported unusual power surges during solar flares. These surges sometimes created energy beams strong enough to disable electronic equipment. The military investigated briefly but abandoned the research when atomic weapons emerged. But he kept digging deeper. He found more reports scattered through history, mysterious equipment failures during solar storms, unexplained energy bursts that affected radio waves. Scientists had written papers about it, but modern technology moved in different directions. Nobody wanted to study old radio waves when new energy weapons seemed more promising. His superior officers called him stubborn and old-fashioned. Young technicians laughed when he tried to explain his theories about combining solar power with radio wave technology. "That's ancient history," they said. "We have particle beams and plasma weapons now." They promoted younger officers who worked with newer systems, while he remained at the same rank until retirement. The forced retirement turned out to be a blessing in disguise. As a maintenance worker on the orbital station, he had access to every part of the structure. He knew every panel, every wire, every forgotten storage room. During quiet night shifts, he read more old documents, comparing them with modern research about solar energy collection. He discovered something everyone else had missed. The alien ships used advanced shields that blocked every modern weapon, but these shields had a weakness. They weren't designed to handle simple, concentrated bursts of solar energy combined with specific radio frequencies. The aliens had developed their defenses against modern weapons, never considering that old Earth technology might pose a threat. In the station's abandoned lower levels, he found old solar collection panels that had been replaced by newer models. Nobody bothered to remove the old equipment. It was cheaper to just install new panels on different sections of the station. He quietly connected these forgotten panels to his own control systems, creating a network that could gather and focus massive amounts of solar energy. The maintenance worker remembered his grandfather's last words: "Sometimes the old ways work best. New isn't always better, it's just new." Those words echoed in his mind as he worked through countless nights, combining decades of forgotten research with his own engineering knowledge. He knew he might fail. He knew some would call him crazy for thinking old technology could defeat the galaxy's most advanced fleet. But he also knew something important about humanity's history. Every great discovery, every breakthrough, came from someone who saw connections others missed. While humanity rushed forward with new technology, they forgot that old knowledge could still hold power. The aliens made the same mistake, assuming newer meant better, forgetting that simple solutions sometimes work best. In his hidden workshop, surrounded by jury-rigged equipment and old manuals, the maintenance worker felt closer to his grandfather than ever before. He understood now why the old man had insisted on keeping his World War II radio equipment, even when everyone said it was useless. Sometimes the most valuable knowledge wasn't in new discoveries, but in remembering what others had forgotten. As he worked, he thought about how history moved in circles. The aliens thought they were invincible because they had the newest, most powerful technology. Just like the armies that laughed at guerrilla fighters, or the navies that underestimated small torpedo boats. Pride and overconfidence killed more soldiers than any weapon ever made. His weapon wasn't elegant. It wouldn't look impressive to modern engineers. But he knew it would work. Because sometimes the deadliest weapon isn't the newest or the most advanced, it's the one your enemy never sees coming. And no one ever saw the quiet maintenance worker coming. No one except his grandfather, who taught him that wisdom doesn't always wear a fancy uniform or carry advanced weapons. Sometimes it wears old work boots and carries a wrench, waiting for the right moment to change history. The maintenance tunnels of the orbital station held more secrets than anyone knew. While alien ships patrolled outside, the old worker moved through these narrow passages like a ghost. Every night, he followed the same routine: check the regular station systems, fix any problems, then slip away to his real work. He'd chosen the perfect hiding spot for his weapon. The station's lowest level contained huge solar array control systems that nobody used anymore. Modern systems ran automatically, leaving these old control rooms forgotten. The alien scans showed only basic power signatures, nothing to worry their mighty fleet. Tonight, he carefully attached the last power converter to his hidden network. His hands moved slowly, making sure every connection was perfect. One mistake could ruin everything. The aliens watched the station constantly, looking for any sign of military activity. But they never noticed the small power fluctuations during his tests. Why would they? Their advanced sensors looked for energy weapons, not simple solar collection systems. The maintenance worker remembered his first days on the station, before the invasion. He'd discovered the old control rooms during a routine check. While others saw useless junk, he saw opportunity. The old solar panels still worked perfectly, they just needed someone who understood their potential. Over years, he quietly gathered parts from demolished sections of the station. Nobody questioned why he volunteered to clean out worthless storage rooms. His makeshift control panel looked rough, built from spare parts and old screens. But appearances didn't matter. He'd tested each component hundreds of times, making sure everything worked exactly right. The aliens' overconfidence helped him work undetected. They let their guard down around him, seeing just another human doing menial work. Sometimes they even waved at him through viewports, probably amused by the primitive who kept the station running. As he worked, he thought about the station's crew. Good people, all of them, but too dependent on modern technology. When the aliens first attacked, everyone expected Earth's advanced weapons to save them. Nobody thought about trying something different, something the aliens wouldn't expect. Their minds couldn't imagine that salvation might come from old technology and simple physics. The maintenance worker kept detailed notes, written in an old paper notebook. He'd learned long ago not to trust computers with important secrets. His calculations filled page after page: solar energy collection rates, power conversion formulas, focusing array positions. He wrote everything in simple language, making sure others could understand his work if something happened to him. Late one night, he made his final modifications to the station's solar collection grid. His hands moved steadily, connecting the last crucial wires. Outside, alien ships drifted past the viewport, their crews probably sleeping soundly, confident in their superior technology. They never noticed the slight glow from the maintenance tunnels, or the quiet humming of equipment coming to life. The worker tested his weapon's targeting system one last time. The crude display screen showed exactly what he needed: power levels, energy focus points, and the optimal firing window. He'd calculated everything based on the alien fleet's patrol patterns. They followed the same routes every day, their arrogance making them predictable. He thought about all the nights he'd spent in these tunnels, working alone while others slept. Some would call it obsession, but he knew better. Sometimes the difference between victory and defeat came down to patience, the willingness to work quietly, steadily, never giving up no matter how long it took. In his hidden workshop, surrounded by the culmination of 40 years' work, the maintenance worker allowed himself a moment of pride. Not pride in himself, but in human ingenuity. In the simple truth that knowledge, properly applied, could defeat any enemy. The aliens thought their advanced technology made them invincible. They forgot that sometimes the deadliest weapon is the simplest one, wielded by someone everyone underestimated. The final piece of his weapon slid into place with a satisfying click. Everything was ready. Now he just had to wait for the right moment, when the alien fleet gathered for their final attack. One chance to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in fancy weapons or advanced shields. It was in the quiet determination of people who never stopped learning, never stopped working, never gave up hope even when everyone else had. The alien scout ship drifted closer to the station, its sleek hull gleaming in the sunlight. The maintenance worker watched it through his workshop viewport, his heart beating steadily. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, a perfect test target, small enough that its destruction might go unnoticed in the vast space around Earth. He'd chosen his moment carefully. The scout ship had separated from the main fleet, moving to investigate a debris field from an earlier battle. The worker knew the aliens' patrol schedules by heart now. This particular ship would be out of contact with the fleet for exactly 7 minutes, just enough time to test his weapon without alerting the entire armada. His fingers moved across the crude control panel, activating the hidden solar collectors one by one. The old systems hummed to life, gathering energy from the sun. On his makeshift display, power levels climbed slowly but steadily. The alien sensors would read it as normal solar collection activity, just another day of powering the station's basic systems. The scout ship turned slightly, presenting its side to the station. Perfect position. The maintenance worker took a deep breath, remembering all his calculations, all the nights spent studying old radar patterns and solar energy waves. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory: "Trust your knowledge, trust your work." He pressed the firing sequence button. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a burst of concentrated solar energy, focused through precisely aligned panels and mixed with specific radio frequencies, shot silently through space. The beam was almost invisible, just a slight distortion in the starlight. The alien scout ship never saw it coming. One moment it was flying smoothly, its advanced shields humming with power. The next moment, its engine sputtered and died. The ship drifted to a stop, all its systems temporarily overloaded by the unexpected energy burst. Just as the maintenance worker had predicted, their shields weren't designed to handle this type of attack. He quickly powered down his weapon, hiding any trace of what he'd done. Through the viewport, he watched the scout ship's crew struggle to restart their systems. They would succeed eventually. He hadn't used enough power to cause permanent damage. That would come later, when he unleashed his weapon's full strength against the main fleet. The station's regular crew barely noticed anything had happened. A few people reported seeing a bright flash, but most assumed it was just another solar flare. The aliens thought the same thing. Their investigation concluded that their scout ship had encountered an unusual burst of solar radiation, a natural phenomenon, nothing to worry about. In his hidden workshop, the maintenance worker smiled as he reviewed the test data. His weapon had worked exactly as planned. The aliens' overconfidence had played right into his hands. They were so convinced of their technological superiority that they didn't even consider the possibility of an attack. He made careful notes in his old paper notebook, recording power levels and energy conversion rates. The test had proved his theories correct. Old technology, properly modified and carefully hidden, could bypass the aliens' most advanced defenses. Sometimes the simplest solutions worked best, a lesson humanity had forgotten in their rush to develop newer, more complicated weapons. That night, as the maintenance worker made his regular rounds through the station, he heard the aliens' latest message demanding Earth surrender. Their arrogant voices boomed through the station's communication systems, listing all their technological advantages, all their unbeatable weapons. They had no idea that their greatest weakness was their own pride. Walking through the quiet corridors, checking systems and fixing minor problems, the worker thought about what would come next. The test had succeeded beyond his expectations, but the real challenge still lay ahead. The alien fleet grew larger every day, gathering for their final attack on Earth. When that moment came, he would have only one chance to unleash his weapon's full power. His thoughts turned to his family on Earth, to all the families waiting and hoping for salvation. Nobody would expect it to come from an old maintenance worker with outdated knowledge and jury-rigged equipment. But sometimes the greatest victories come from the most unexpected sources. As his grandfather used to say, it's not the fanciness of your tools that matters, it's knowing exactly how to use them. The alien scout ship eventually restored power and limped back to the main fleet. In their report, they dismissed the incident as a minor anomaly. Their pride wouldn't let them consider any other explanation. They never suspected that this small power failure was just a preview of what was coming, that their mighty armada would soon face the same fate, but on a much larger scale. The maintenance worker stood at his favorite viewport, watching more alien ships arrive by the hour. Their massive warships blocked out entire star patterns now. The aliens weren't trying to hide their strength anymore, they wanted Earth to see their overwhelming power. Their final message had been clear: surrender within 24 hours, or face complete destruction. In his hidden workshop, he recorded one last message, speaking clearly into an old voice recorder. "My name doesn't matter," he began. "What matters is what I found in those dusty military archives 15 years ago. What matters is why it works, so others can use this knowledge if I fail." He explained everything: the World War II research about radar anomalies during solar storms, the forgotten studies about radio wave amplification, the simple physics that modern scientists had overlooked. He included every detail about how he'd modified the station's solar collectors, how he'd hidden the power signatures from alien scans. "The aliens think they're invincible because they have the newest technology," he continued. "They forgot something important about humans: we learn from history. Every piece of knowledge we've ever discovered still has value, if you know how to use it." Through the station speakers, he could hear the crew's worried conversations. Nobody slept much anymore. The alien fleet's formation was like nothing they'd seen before, a massive wall of warships stretching across space, preparing to strike Earth from multiple directions at once. The maintenance worker kept working his regular shift, checking systems and fixing problems like he had for 15 years. Young crew members gave him sad looks, probably thinking the old man didn't understand their desperate situation. They had no idea he'd just finished testing the weapon that would save them all. He thought about his daughter on Earth, teaching her students even with alien ships filling the sky. She'd always believed in him, even when others laughed at his interest in old technology. "Dad," she'd said once, "sometimes the oldest stories have the most important lessons." She was right. History had taught him exactly what he needed to know. In the station's mess hall, he heard officers discussing Earth's remaining defenses. Their voices were low, defeated. They'd tried everything: missiles, energy weapons, even experimental technology rushed into service. Nothing could penetrate the aliens' advanced shields. The aliens knew this, which made them bold, careless. The maintenance worker ate his dinner quietly, listening to the conversations around him. He wanted to tell them not to worry, that humanity's salvation was hidden in the station's maintenance tunnels. But he stayed silent. The aliens monitored everything, and his weapon would only work if they never saw it coming. Back in his workshop, he made final adjustments to his control systems. The alien fleet's attack formation actually made his job easier. Their ships were packed close together, trying to look impressive. They didn't realize they were arranging themselves perfectly for what was coming. He added one last note to his recorded message: "To whoever finds this, remember that humanity's greatest strength isn't our newest weapons or fanciest technology. It's our ability to learn from the past, to see value in old knowledge that others have forgotten." The aliens thought they could beat us with advanced technology alone. They forgot that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most powerful. The station shook slightly as more alien ships moved into position. Their fleet was almost ready. The maintenance worker could see their massive command ships taking up attack positions, their weapons powered up for the final assault on Earth. The aliens were putting on a show of force, making sure humans could see their doom approaching. In his hidden workshop, old equipment hummed steadily, gathering power for one massive burst. He'd calculated everything perfectly. The aliens' formation would let him hit their entire fleet at once, using their own arrogance against them. They'd packed their ships together, never imagining that a simple focused burst of solar energy could reach them all. The maintenance worker thought about all the nights he'd spent working alone, all the years of study and preparation. Everything had led to this moment. As he watched the alien fleet's final preparations, he felt strangely calm. Sometimes the most important battles are fought not by mighty armies, but by quiet people who never stopped learning, never stopped preparing for their moment to make a difference. The final hour arrived with the alien fleet's war horns blaring through space. Their sound system was so powerful it made the station's windows vibrate. The maintenance worker watched their massive ships move into their final attack positions, forming a perfect curved wall of destruction. Their admiral's voice boomed through every communication channel: "Witness the power of true civilization, primitives. Your time ends now." In his hidden workshop, the maintenance worker's hands moved steadily across his control panel. He'd practiced these movements thousands of times. Every switch, every button, every power adjustment had to be perfect. The aliens had given him exactly what he needed. Their ships were now arranged in an arc, perfectly positioned to catch his weapon's full effect. The station's regular crew huddled in their emergency stations, believing these were their final moments. Through the internal cameras, he could see them holding hands, sharing pictures of loved ones on Earth. Their fear made him work faster. Everything he'd prepared, every secret he'd kept, was for them. His makeshift energy collectors hummed to life one by one. On his old screens, power readings climbed steadily. The alien fleet was so focused on their dramatic final attack that they didn't notice the slight power fluctuations from what they thought was just a primitive maintenance station. Energy collection at 60%, he muttered to himself, watching the numbers rise. Through the viewport, he could see the alien ship's weapons powering up, their hull plates glowing with stored energy. They wanted to make a show of Earth's destruction. Their formation was meant to let everyone see their overwhelming power. 80%. The maintenance worker thought about his grandfather's old radio room, about all the nights they'd spent talking about World War II technology. The best weapon, his grandfather had said, is the one your enemy doesn't believe exists. The aliens were about to learn that lesson the hard way. 90%. The alien admiral's voice filled the station again. Watch closely, Earth. Let your final moments be a lesson about defying superior beings. The maintenance worker allowed himself a small smile. Superior beings wouldn't have missed the threat right in front of them. Power levels hit 100%. The worker took a deep breath, thinking of his daughter, his grandchildren, everyone on Earth waiting for a miracle. His fingers moved to the final sequence of buttons. No hesitation. No doubt. Just the quiet certainty of a man who knew his calculations were perfect. He pressed the activation switch. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the station's lights dimmed slightly as every solar collector fed power into his jerry-rigged weapon. The burst of focused energy shot out silently, invisible except for a slight shimmer in the starlight. The alien fleet never saw it coming. Their advanced sensors were designed to detect modern weapons, not a simple concentrated burst of solar energy mixed with specific radio frequencies. The energy wave hit their formation at exactly the right angle, catching every ship in its path. The effect was immediate and devastating. Ship after ship lost power as the energy surge overloaded their systems. Their mighty engines sputtered and died. Their advanced weapons went dark. Even their emergency systems failed, overwhelmed by the type of attack they'd never thought to defend against. The maintenance worker watched through his viewport as confusion spread through the alien fleet. Their perfect formation broke apart as ships tried to restore power. Emergency signals flashed between vessels, but their communication systems were failing too. Everything that made their technology superior was now working against them. On his crude display screen, the worker could see the chain reaction spreading. Each disabled ship affected those around it, creating a cascade of failures throughout the fleet. The aliens had packed their ships so closely together, trying to look impressive, that they'd helped his weapon work even better than he'd calculated. The alien admiral's voice came through one last time, broken and confused. What kind of weapon is this? Then silence. Their mighty command ship, with all its advanced technology, drifted powerless in space like all the others. In the station's corridors, crew members emerged from their emergency shelters, staring in disbelief at the sight outside their windows. The invincible alien armada, the fleet that had terrorized Earth for months, now floated helpless in space. Their mighty ships were just metal shells, defeated by knowledge they'd thought too primitive to be dangerous. The maintenance worker began powering down his weapon. The energy burst had done exactly what he'd planned, overloaded the alien systems beyond recovery. He could already see escape pods launching from the stricken ships as alien crews abandoned their useless vessels. The mighty invaders were running from an old man with jury-rigged equipment and forgotten knowledge. As cheers began to fill the station's corridors, the maintenance worker sat quietly in his workshop, surrounded by the old technology that had just saved humanity. Sometimes victory doesn't come with a mighty roar or a dramatic battle. Sometimes it comes silently, from hands that have worked patiently for years, waiting for the right moment to change history. News of the alien fleet's defeat spread across Earth like wildfire. The maintenance worker watched from his workshop as ships launched from the planet, racing to investigate the miracle that had just occurred. His recorded message had already been transmitted to Earth's leaders, explaining exactly how he'd accomplished the impossible. The station's damage was significant but manageable. The massive power surge had burned out several systems, just as he'd expected. But the worker had planned for this too. Even before the cheering crowds in the corridors had settled down, he was already making his rounds with his trusty tool belt, fixing what needed to be fixed. Some habits didn't change, even after saving the world. Through the viewport, he could see the alien ships still drifting helplessly in space. Earth's remaining military vessels approached them cautiously, but there was no resistance. The mighty invaders were abandoning their ships in escape pods, their advanced technology now useless. Some pods headed for Earth, carrying aliens who chose surrender over drifting in space. The station's commander found him replacing a burned-out power coupling in a quiet corridor. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" she asked, her voice mixing wonder and respect. The maintenance worker smiled as he finished tightening the coupling. "Would you have believed me?" he asked quietly. "An old man talking about World War II technology and solar energy weapons?" His daughter's face appeared on the emergency communication screen, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Dad," she whispered, "they're saying you saved us all. My students, everyone. They want to know how you did it." He told her the same thing his grandfather had told him long ago: "I just paid attention to the old stories that everyone else forgot." Scientists from Earth were already studying his weapon design. His detailed notes, written carefully in his old paper notebook, would help humanity defend itself if other alien threats appeared. Some of the younger engineers looked embarrassed when they realized how simple the basic concept was. They'd been so focused on developing new technology that they'd forgotten the power of old knowledge. The maintenance worker insisted on helping repair the station's damaged systems before accepting any celebrations. As he worked, he heard snippets of conversation from the crew. They talked about his patience, his dedication, how he'd worked quietly for years while everyone underestimated him. Some felt guilty for never noticing, for treating him as just another old worker doing menial jobs. Earth's leaders sent messages asking him to come down for ceremonies and awards. He listened to their requests while fixing the station's backup power systems, making sure everything was working properly before even considering leaving his post. "The job's not finished until everything's running right," he said to anyone who tried to hurry him. News broadcasts showed celebrations breaking out across the planet. The alien threat that had haunted humanity for months was over. People were calling it a miracle, but the maintenance worker knew better. It wasn't a miracle, it was the result of patience, careful study, and the willingness to learn from history. In his hidden workshop, now no longer a secret, he carefully organized his research materials. Young engineers crowded around, eager to learn about the old technology he'd used. He showed them his modifications to the solar collectors, explaining how simple physics had defeated the most advanced alien shields. "But how did you know it would work?" one young engineer asked. The maintenance worker thought about all the nights he'd spent studying, all the years of careful preparation. "Because I took the time to learn," he answered. "Not just the new things, but the old things too. Knowledge doesn't expire, it just waits for someone to remember its value." The alien admiral, now a prisoner on Earth, asked to meet the person who had defeated his fleet. Standing face to face with the maintenance worker, the alien leader couldn't hide his disbelief. "All our advanced technology," he said, "defeated by this?" The worker straightened his worn uniform. "Defeated by knowledge," he corrected. "Knowledge you thought was too primitive to be dangerous." As the sun set on his final shift aboard the station, the maintenance worker looked out at the stars. The alien ships were being towed away by Earth's recovery vessels. Soon, humans would learn all the secrets of their advanced technology. But he hoped they wouldn't forget the lesson of this victory, that wisdom could come from unexpected places, and that sometimes the quietest person in the room could be the most dangerous. 1 year after humanity's victory, the old maintenance worker sat in a rocking chair on his daughter's porch in the Rocky Mountains. The evening sky was clear, stars shining brightly without alien ships blocking their light. He could see the orbital station passing overhead, now upgraded with a mixture of human and alien technology, but still running on the same basic principles he'd always trusted. The world had changed dramatically since that fateful day. Humanity had learned from both their victory and the aliens' defeat. The aliens' advanced technology now helped power Earth's cities, but nobody completely trusted it anymore. Every new system had a backup based on simpler, proven technology. The maintenance worker's greatest legacy wasn't just defeating the alien fleet, it was teaching humanity to value all of its knowledge, both old and new. His grandchildren played in the yard, pretending to be space heroes. But their games were different from before. Instead of just fighting with fancy weapons, they solved problems by thinking carefully and using simple tools. They'd learned the story of their grandfather's victory, understanding that sometimes the quietest heroes made the biggest difference. The maintenance worker had refused most of the honors offered to him. He'd accepted one thing, a small workshop behind his daughter's house where he could continue his research. Young engineers and scientists often visited, eager to learn from his experience. He taught them about old technology, but more importantly, he taught them to think differently about knowledge. Never ignore the simple solutions, he told them, showing them his original notebooks. And never think you're too advanced to learn from the past. The universities had created new courses combining historical technology with modern innovation. Students learned that every piece of human knowledge had value, that understanding the past could help create a better future. The aliens who'd surrendered became valuable allies, humbled by their defeat. They shared their technology freely, but also studied humanity's history with great interest. We thought we were superior because we only looked forward, their former admiral admitted during a peace conference. You proved that true wisdom means learning from all available knowledge, not just the newest discoveries. The maintenance worker's old workshop on the station had become a museum, preserved exactly as it had been on that historic day. But it wasn't just for show. It was a working classroom where students learned how simple innovations could solve complex problems. His daughter had taken charge of teaching there, helping a new generation understand her father's legacy. On quiet evenings like this, the worker often thought about his grandfather, wishing he could share this moment with him. The old radio equipment that had sparked his interest now sat in a corner of his new workshop, still functioning, still valuable. Sometimes he used it to talk with astronauts on the station, enjoying the simplicity of radio waves traveling through space. His original weapon design had led to new defensive systems protecting Earth, all based on his principle of combining old knowledge with new ideas. But he was most proud of how people had changed their thinking. The aliens' defeat had taught humanity an important lesson about pride and wisdom. Nobody automatically dismissed old ideas anymore, and nobody underestimated quiet people doing seemingly simple jobs. As the sun set behind the mountains, the maintenance worker watched his grandchildren playing. They would grow up in a world that valued all forms of knowledge, that understood the power of patience and careful observation. They would know that heroes didn't always wear uniforms or carry weapons, sometimes they wore work boots and carried tool belts. "Grandpa," his youngest grandchild asked, climbing into his lap, "tell us again how you saved the world." The old worker smiled, remembering his own grandfather telling him stories that everyone else had forgotten. "Well," he began, "it started with learning to listen to old stories, and understanding that every piece of knowledge, no matter how simple it seems, has value." The stars twinkled overhead as he told his story once again. On the horizon, Earth's new defense platforms, based on his designs, gathered solar energy quietly and efficiently. Humanity had faced its greatest threat and survived, not through overwhelming force or advanced technology, but through the quiet wisdom of remembering its past. The maintenance worker's greatest victory wasn't just defeating the alien fleet. It was teaching humanity that true strength comes from valuing all knowledge, respecting simple wisdom, and never underestimating the power of patient, careful work. In a world that often rushed forward too quickly, he had proved that sometimes the best solutions came from remembering what others had forgotten.